Well, good afternoon to those watching on LinkedIn. Welcome to today's Ribbon for Travel session, which is solely aimed on helping those who are currently job seeking to fix those errors they make on their CVs and interview processes and so forth. And for that, I'm so happy that I'm joined today by the experts in this field, Emma and Elena, who stepped up to the plate instantly and said they'd be more than happy to help out. So thank you very much. Good afternoon to both of you. Emma, how are you?
Yes, good, thank you. Thank you for having me on again. I'm really looking forward to helping some people today. Hopefully we can share a bit of advice from our perspective as recruiters. And, you know, this is something we do day in, day out on a weekly basis. So hopefully we can give some good insight and help people.
Brilliant. And Elena, how are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. As Emma said, thank you very much for inviting us up to speak and to support our industry colleagues and to give some advice and tips and share where they can go forward with looking for new employment.
Fantastic. We did say that we don't have a very rigid structure to today, so we're just going to have a conversation today, and I really like that because I think that is the best ones to be had. I just want to mention to those watching us on LinkedIn, you can comment, and we will see your comment on here. And if we want to discuss it, we can bring it on the stage, etc. So even if you have a question or something you want to know, or just a comment of an experience you had yourself in a recent application process, leave us your comments and we can see them and we can respond to them. So do that. So it's been a long while since I have ever applied for a job. It's been something that's in a distant memory. What's the latest or what's changed, or what are people looking for in a CV these days? Is there still the old style of short summary and then expansion? I mean, what's the latest with CVs?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a difficult one, and there's so much advice out there and a lot of conflicting advice, and people will tell you, you must do this and you must do that. It must be very difficult for a job seeker now to try and navigate through that and to know what is the best thing to do. There are different types of CVs that you can do. You've got one that is a chronological CV, so everything goes in order of it's more work focused, it's all about your jobs. And then you've got a more functional CV, which focuses more on your transferable skills. So for me personally, I think that it very much depends on what you're going for as what you need to do. For me, it's a lot about layout. I see, as a recruiter, we see a lot of CVs and we're looking for information, and we're looking for that information quickly. So we don't want to have to wade through your CV to find what we're looking for. And some people will bury really important facts in amongst big chunks of text, and we might miss it. You are relying on us to spot that. And yes, we will be reading it, but not all recruiters are the same. So make it easy for somebody to know what you want from that, what you want them to know about you, and what you're going for as well, and what you want to do. And that should be conveyed in the top section of your CV. I think it should be something that is very readily available immediately. When I see that first personal section at the beginning, I know exactly what this person is about, what they can do, and what they're looking to do next.
Yeah, definitely agree. Yeah, it's so much information that goes on to a CV, and I think sometimes the CV becomes so long that the important elements that we're really looking for that correspond with the job that's being applied to sometimes gets lost in that text, or sometimes is forgotten. So like key skills, like Emma said, definitely have them on top where we can see them, that identifies with the role that's been applied to.
Look at those comments. I mean, Andy, you took the words out of my mouth. Andy Kern's commenting there about, it sounds like the About Me section of a LinkedIn profile. It is actually exactly that. You've just mentioned it, both of you, that, you know, you need to think how the person looking at that piece of information is going to want to quickly see what's relevant for them in what they're looking for in you. And so to bury it on page 3 is not going to help you. And this sounds exactly the same as, you know, Andy is part of a group with myself and a few others where we help people with their LinkedIn profile on a Wednesday afternoon. We do this, and we talk exactly like you've just mentioned there. Put what you want somebody to see at the top, very instantly viewable, so that's the starting point. And then the rest can follow in the detail, right?
You're trying to intrigue somebody to read more. You know, I always say to people in that personal section at the top, we want to know who you are, what you do, and what you're looking for. And they're the 3 things that you don't need. It doesn't need to be a page long. 3 short paragraphs that cover that and that show us why we should keep reading that CV are really important. So I would say that, you know, it's not just about stuffing it full of corporate jargon either, and the words that people think, you know, I'm a good timekeeper, I'm this, I'm that. We want to hear personality. We want to see who you are as much as we possibly can from that document. And, you know, it should be something that you constantly update as well. And I know that a lot of people have come to us in the last 18 months, I haven't touched my CV for 15 years. Well, then it's, you know, even if you're not job searching, it should be something that you constantly go back and update, because you do forget things that you've done in your career, and you may not put it on there, but actually if you do something amazing, stick it on there as you're going along. Just have it on your computer ready. And so it's always current, because you don't know when opportunities are going to come knocking as well. So that's a big tip for future people that are doing their CV now. Don't forget about it for another 10 years, even if you get a job now. Constantly update it.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think when you're looking for a job, that's when you forget. You forget what you've done. You forget who you've been in your jobs, and you're just, well, where do I start with a CV? But as Emma said, if you're constantly keeping it updated, especially with some achievements or with, you know, how many team members you've been managing, particular call stats or revenue generated, these are important facts that should be on your CV, especially when you're applying to other roles. And then, you know, when we find job seekers looking, they're like, well, I don't know where to start from because I've forgotten, or, you know, who am I? You kind of feel like you've lost your identity when you're in a situation of looking for employment.
Yeah, I mean, I forgot what I did this morning, so yes, I should write these things down. And you're right. And again, it's exactly what we tell people with LinkedIn: keep your LinkedIn profile up to date, because again, a lot of people dust it off after 10 years, and it's not relevant at all. So, yes, Andy again is commenting about the fact that that's what he's looking for. He wants that stuff on the top of page 1, and the rest, as far as he's concerned, is for relevant experience and so on. So, thanks for that, Andy. Okay. Mistakes apart from not having that relevant information. What else comes to mind? Elena, when I talked to you yesterday, you said, an hour is not going to be enough for this conversation, right? You know, what mistakes are people making in CVs?
Sometimes telephone numbers are incorrect. Email addresses are wrong as well. So we'll try and ring out, and the numbers are not being picked up, or it gets diverted onto someone else, obviously, for that wrong telephone number. Gaps sometimes aren't covered in CVs as well. And I think those are important as well. Whatever you've been doing in those gaps, highlight them. You know, if you've taken a career break, highlight that, you know, just making sure that everything's covered within your CV. Also, we find, especially when it comes to like the marketing and digital roles, we find people tend to put it together in such a way that it's so difficult to read, like with so many fonts, so many colours, that the whole content is so hard to read, and it gets lost with all the colours and all the different fonts as well. Whereas what you're looking for, the skills, are they aligned to what the job is requiring you to do? And that's really what we're looking for.
Yeah, I totally agree with that one. Definitely, you know, tables, graphs, all that sort of thing, you know, okay, it might look amazing when someone's looking at it, but that's not what we're looking for. So, and also that can I know that the system that we use for CVs as well sometimes doesn't like those graphs, and it can't pull the right information from it. And that's the case across a lot of these CV parsing systems. They need the information to be laid out in such a way, and yeah, they can cope with most formats, but some of them, I mean, I see some very, very intricate and very difficult, very small fonts for us to read. We're human beings trying to look at this on a computer screen. We don't want to have to be enlarging it 50% to try and scroll through and find the information. We want it in front of us. So hiding it away in tables and graphs for me is a bit of a no-no, really, and a wasted opportunity for you to get valuable information on your CV. And I think, yeah, as Elena said there about gaps as well, don't leave it to somebody's imagination as to what you were doing during that time. Put what you were doing. You can put job searching for this period of time. That's absolutely fine. And I think as well, sometimes people when they put dates, they might put like 2020 to 2021. So they don't put months. Well, yeah. That could mean December 2020 to February 2021, which is 3 months. Or it could mean January 2020 to December 2021, which is 2 years. So you're doing yourself out of experience there by not saying how long you were actually there for. So I think that's something that's quite important as well.
Fantastic. I'm making some notes. That's why I'm looking down at my pad here. But that's really, really good. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I have to say, in the days when I was hiring and looking at CVs, yes, the one thing that annoyed me really the most was this inconsistent mixing of fonts and colors, etc., because it's not readable. They don't think about the readability of it. So that's good. Yeah. Good afternoon, Miguel. I think you're joining us from the southern hemisphere somewhere. You have to remind me where you are, Miguel. But welcome to the session. I momentarily forgot. You see, I forget what I do. I have to write these things down. But Miguel, we have talked to you before on LinkedIn as well. So welcome to the session.
I think as well, actually, while we're just talking about things to put on the CV, the personal details section. A lot of people still put a lot of really unnecessary information on there.
Such as?
Address. You don't need your address on there.
Okay.
No, you need your contact details and your name, really. Maybe your location if you want that. But we do not need your full address. We don't need your national insurance number. We don't need your marital status. And believe me, people put this stuff on there. Height and weight as well, I've had on CVs.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, but it's not relevant. And the problem is when you're putting this sort of stuff on there as well, not only is it information that people don't need at this stage, but you could be creating unconscious bias by putting too much information on there about you as a person. You don't need to put too much stuff on there. It's just not necessary.
I can guarantee you I'm not going to put my weight on a CV. That's no problem. So there we go. And we go, yeah, that's right. You're in Buenos Aires, so welcome. Thank you. I mean, that's a very interesting point, Emma, about address, national insurance, etc. You also have to think about where that CV is going to be floating around, right? So you don't want your data lying around like that, especially nowadays. So they need to be able to contact you and need to know that you are, like you say, you're in Suffolk or in a town, but you don't need to say this is the street address and the access to my alarm system, right?
And your date of birth as well. We don't need to know that either. It's not, whether you like it or not, some people will see that and will immediately make a judgment. Too young, too old. You don't want to do that. You want them to look at who you are as a person first. If you've got that right at the top of your CV, that's what they read first. So
you don't need to say how old you are on the CV?
No.
Okay, well that is even something that I would misunderstand. I would have thought you have to do that.
No, not at all. Not at all. You don't need to put anything like that on there. People can deduce. If you've got dates on there, but at that point they're at the bottom of your CV, so they've already read how good you are. You've already sold yourself before you've said, this is how old I am. It's not relevant to how well you can do the job. So I'd keep that off, personally.
Okay, I want to come back to that in a second because you've just said, well, let's do it now. You've just said they want to by then they've read how good you are.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find people are not? The word is not ashamed. They are shy to promote themselves.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, very much so. And you say to them, you know, I always say to have a key achievements section on there. I'm sure Eleanor probably does as well. It's a highlighting the things in your career that you feel are something that you want somebody to know about you, something very relevant to the job, something exceptional that you've done, something you're proud of. And people are so nervous to do that. And they'll be telling us in the conversation and something that they've done. And you go, well, that's not on your CV. And they go, oh, I didn't want to put that on there. I didn't want to show off. Well, forget that. You know, you need to show off. This is a document. It's a marketing tool for you as a person, and you need to use it and see it like that. That is what it is. But yeah, I do feel people are uncomfortable talking about how good they are at something. And I don't know. Do you find that, Eleanor, as well?
Yeah, 100%. Totally agree with you as well. Like the key achievement section is so important. And like you just said, sometimes you could be going through a CV saying, look, unfortunately, you don't match what the client's requirements are.
Yeah.
And then 10 minutes into the conversation, oh, well, I've got this and this is what, and well, that's not on your CV. You need to have that on there, because had we not been making the call to you, we wouldn't be able to identify those skills.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, your skill has to, like you just rightly said, it's a marketing tool for you to secure you the interview, and that's what it is. You know, you know what? You've heard me say it before, Emma. We used to work together as well, me and Emma. But I used to say to people, you know, it's that you got to think of yourself like a peacock. You know, you want to spread your wings and show off. Whether you're in an interview, whether you're marketing yourself via your CV, that is what you're doing. Because if you're not doing it, someone else is doing it, and they're beating you to that position that you really want.
On a side note, this is the weirdest thing that's happening this week. It's the fourth time this week during the Ribbon for Travel that the word peacock comes into the
really?
conversation. Now, it's a very unusual animal to be talking about, firstly. And why is it happening all this week? That we've had a conversation. I have to, think back now. There was a definite, rampant peacocks came up in the conversation with Bex. Yes. And then, somewhere else it came up this week, and this is like the third or the fourth time. So, wow, how bizarre. The key achievement section sounds really interesting to me, but something that you said, Emma, you said this is the section where you write down what you feel others should see about you or know about you. That's very interesting, because people might think, I need to write what other people are expecting me to write, etc. But this is about what you are proud of, or what you've done, or what you feel others should know about.
I think so. And I always say to people as well, it doesn't have to be work related. You know, if you have achieved something that you are proud of, because what we do outside of work is just as important and contributes to the person that we are as a whole. We're not just, companies shouldn't just be looking to hire somebody purely because they can sit them down in a chair and they could physically do the job. There is so much more about a person that can contribute to the culture of a company, and seeing what people have achieved and what they're proud of in their life, I think is really important. And I think that, it makes you up. For me, the whole purpose of your CV, you want to try and bring it to life a little bit. You want to show them that there is a person, because you are a person behind that document, and it gives a talking point. It shows that for example, if you've competed in, I don't know, a triathlon or something, and you're really proud of that, well, there are skills there that, not just physical skills, but determination, resilience, all those kind of things that can come out in so many different ways. It's not purely down to what you do sat in a chair in the office.
So I used to work weekends as a teenager on a crocodile farm. I should put that down, because it shows immense skills in running fast.
Well, exactly. Survival skills, no doubt.
There we go. I'm determined to survive. Absolutely.
Yeah, wow. But yeah, it is. It's not, most people can pick out a couple of things from their career. But for those who don't feel like, I have spoken to some people and they've said, I've not been working that long. I don't feel like I've got any real achievements. So of course you have. You must have done some things in your life that you're proud of. And especially relevant if you don't have work experience in the sector that you're trying to get into. So some people want to work, say, in care, but they've been in business travel, yet they've volunteered in a care home, or they've been looking after somebody. They've been doing like a partnership thing where you're a companion for an elderly person. And I say, well, and they've changed somebody's life by doing that. Well, that's an achievement, and that is very relevant to the job that you want to go for. And again, I think we said on the call the other day, it's about tailoring yourself and your CV to the job you want, and not necessarily the one that you've already had, especially if you're moving sectors.
We can again be talking about the LinkedIn profile. This happens so much on there, because we keep bumping into things where people are putting, different things on, and we say, what is it that you want to achieve with putting this out there? What is the goal? And tailor it to suit that goal. And so if you're applying for this job at this company, tailor your CV to suit that goal, because you're not lying, you're just putting the things that's relevant to that job in front, right? So that's really good. You just mentioned that thing about jumping sectors, right? So we had that brilliant discussion on Tuesday, thanks to you, Emma, and that came out quite a bit, where people were saying, don't, for this different sector job you go into, telling the person there that you were head of the ticketing department is not going to mean much, right? But if you take some of the functions of that job and put it forward and say, look, I was able to deal with, massive amounts of data that flew through the department, and I had to, figure out how that mapped to the correct accounts, or I did a lot of QC checks on things, etc. It shows very much, attention to detail and diligence, and it might reply very well to the new job that you are applying for. And combine that with the life skills. I love that, the fact that you can say, I can map something I've done in a personal capacity to a skill that's required in this job, and show the relevance. Now you're onto something, because we said it, we heard it on that call. People were saying, oh, I've been in the industry 15 years, I can't do anything else. Well, there's a lot you can do, right, outside the industry.
So much.
So much.
And people. I don't know if Emma mentioned it earlier on. Functional CVs, when coming out of our industry, that's where you're really focusing on the crossover skills, because the functionals. There's some great templates on Google, but the functional CV really hones in on the skills rather than the employment history so much, and it really does highlight and enables the individual to highlight all of that, where it can easily be crossed over to somewhere else.
And as the owner of a business, I am looking for what can the person do, and then, oh, by the way, where have you worked before? But I'm looking at what can you do, right, for this role.
Right. And it's about being able to qualify what you say as well. So,
yes.
We all know that there's hard skills and soft skills that employers look for. Hard skills are things that can be taught. It's qualifications, it's GDS skills, that sort of thing. Soft skills are the more transferable skills. So about who you are as a person. And they can be very difficult to describe or qualify on a CV, but you do have to try. And it is about naming that skill, saying what you mean by that skill, and backing it up, really. This is I am this sort of person, this is what I mean by that, and this is how I can demonstrate that. So it's not an easy thing to do, and it's where a lot of people struggle, finding who they are as a person, almost having to dig deep and be like, I am really good at that. And being able to describe that and demonstrate it on a CV. But it is important, especially if you are moving into a different sector or a different role.
Well, why do I get the feeling that both of you are spending all of your time in almost like a counselling role rather than a job finding role?
Well, yeah, it certainly has been like that for a long time. Yeah. And, we've always given CV advice. I think as recruiters, it's just something that you should be doing anyway, but certainly never to the level that we have in the last 18 months, and really having to understand it ourselves a lot more for people who are, because normally we wouldn't necessarily deal with people that are trying to get into a different industry. We'd be recruiting within, so we'd be looking at people's CVs and yes, telling them what to do and how to highlight their skills. But I don't know, I feel for me as well that it's given me a much broader understanding of the CV and what people are looking for and what they need to do to showcase themselves, for sure.
Yeah, do you know what? It's been so tough, I think, not only as recruiters, and I'm sure Emma can agree as well. I mean, I've been on my personal journey, and it's you know, for candidates as well that are looking for employment, and even those that are currently are in employment and are feeling the pressure, you know, especially at that senior management level, you know, feeling the pressure of having to keep everything together. It's been really tough. It's been a tough time for everyone, and I think the process of communication and communicating with one another has really helped, you know, and identifying with that person. You're not the only one that feels what you're feeling at the moment, you know, and it's okay what you're feeling. It's normal. We're all feeling that, and it's the togetherness as well that it's kind of created. I'm sure Emma feels it as well. But
I do want to talk to you guys more about the state of the market, etc., and where things are towards the end, so we can finish on a positive as well. Which, you know, we are aware of those watching; they are looking for help, right? Just before we finish off that CV section, I have two or three quick fire questions to you. So, format: PDF or Word or something else? What should it be?
Word.
Word. You said that very quickly. Why Word?
Word, definitely, because there are some times as well where we're speaking to the candidate and we identify really quickly things that need to be put onto the CV that we can quickly go on, add that on with the candidate's permission, and also where we remove personal information or information that's irrelevant to the position.
like your weight.
Date of birth, you know, the full address. These aren't required for the client to know, you know, so it's easy for us to make those changes.
Okay. And Emma, you were referring to CV systems. So are there places where the CV gets uploaded and then it gets pulled into a system? So again, not PDF, right?
Yeah, I mean, it will cope with PDFs.
Mm-hmm.
It's more as long as they are a simple layout of PDF.
Okay.
When people start trying to get too technical with them, and they've got, you know, a column down one side with all the little skills, and then they've got a whole section somewhere else, and they've got dates all over the place. It doesn't know where to read the dates from. So you will end up with, it comes through and things can be backwards, you know. And then for us, we have to spend a lot of time rearranging that then. So, you know, if you've got similar experience to somebody who has got a perfect CV that goes through and it's all chronologically sorted out and it's all perfect, and then yours is all over the place and it takes that recruiter half an hour to sort that out, you can risk them going, do you know what, I'm sending this
not
one
worth
first.
it. Yeah. Okay. And then maximum length of a CV. What's the maximum it should be? No more than.
I think it's a hard one, really, because you know, I never like to say to people there is a maximum length. I think an ideal length, you know, 2 to 3 pages is probably ideal. But you know what? If your CV is relevant and interesting, then you need to put that information on there. So if it's spilled over a little bit into 4, you're not going to get rejected because of it. If it's 10 pages long, well, I'd probably question why it needs to be 10 pages long, really. But for me, as long as the information that's on there, every single bit of info is relevant, then I don't focus on how long it is, really. If it was only 1 page, I would ask them probably. I would say there's not enough information on there, you know, but you just need to make sure that every bit counts. So not some people, what they do is they'll put, say they were a business travel consultant at one place, they will then copy that entire paragraph of job description onto the other business travel consultant role that they did. So there's basically 2-3 lots of exactly the same text on that CV. That's not necessary. You know, if the job was the same, you can write as above with additional responsibilities of, and put the changes, but you don't need to write the exact same thing 3 times.
So there's a comment from Andy about everybody loves Microsoft. Yes, Andy, I can do Word on a Mac as well, so it's fine. I can do Word. We've got this thing about Mac and Words, but that's okay. Cool. Elena, I just want to ask you, so, you know, your CV is done, it looks good, etc. How common is it for prospective employers to also go and look at the applicants' social media profiles and check that out? Is that sometimes forgotten by the applicant, that people can go and look at your public domain information?
Yeah, it's very common. It is common that clients will go and have a look at your social media. It's a common process. So what you're putting out there on LinkedIn, what you're supporting, what you're writing, your comments, they do get viewed. And also with your LinkedIn profile as well, it must be in sync with your CV as well.
Very important.
With the job titles.
Yes.
We've had job titles come in that have been adapted for a CV, and then it's totally the opposite to what it is on LinkedIn. So that's really important. And also your dates as well of employment, they get looked at as well to make sure they're syncing with each other. So yeah, they are looking and watching.
Yeah. And you need to be careful of not having, crazy drunk photos of you running around a pool or something all the time, right? So, I mean, nobody minds a bit of fun, but if that's all you do, then yeah, it's not going to send the right vibe as well.
You can put your account on private, so no one can see anything.
Yeah, sure.
Ultimately, look, what we do outside of work is your personal. It's your personal interest.
That's a good point.
What you do, it shouldn't affect you as long as you're in your job doing what you're doing. But unfortunately, sometimes it does create that biased opinion of who you are. If that's all it's showcasing, the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a perception, isn't it? And as much as we all want to try and get away from that,
unfortunately.
Then that is what happens.
But perception is reality, right? That's the hard lesson we learn in the corporate world. So yes, I mean, you have to be aware of that. Okay, good. So look at that, half an hour gone, and we've only talked about the CV. Elena, you were right. There's a lot to talk about there. I just want to go back to some of the key points on the CV, and then we can move on to the next section. So I love the fact that you talked about the fact that it needs to be very readable. You need to be aware of where you put the relevant information to the job, because the person reading it is going to scan for that and go for that quite quickly. You need to think about gaps and no errors. So don't put the wrong phone number and the wrong email and have massive gaps in the date. And also when you put dates down, don't put 2020, 2021. Make sure it's specific so there's not anything missing there. And there's a lot of information that people add to CVs which they don't need. So addresses, heights and weights, date of birth, all that stuff. So think about where that data is going to float around and what's needed for somebody to see it. And then the format is ideally Word. Ideal length is 2 to 3 pages, but make sure that what you have on there is relevant to what you want to show. And then make sure that the titles and the stuff you've put on there is in sync with what's on your other profiles on social media, etc. So great tips.
I just add one more thing, Rianne, if that's okay, because I think it's a lot of things people. I know I do talk, but language, the language that you use on your CV is huge. This is something that I learned actually about using. When you read a CV, a lot of people write responsible for. They write that, like that's what they write. I'm responsible for this. They don't use strong action verbs. You want words that are going to be, enhanced. I created, I managed, different words, rather than it sounding like it was just you did something that somebody else told you to do.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, you need to use words that show action.
It sounds like you need to almost try and see if you should reference your CV through a copywriter, right? Because
sometimes I know.
Yes,
sometimes it is, but I didn't necessarily think about that too much before, but actually I never realised almost when I'm reading these CVs that they are the ones that I naturally gravitate towards.
Yes.
Those ones with the, oh wow.
Well, we're only human, right? That's what you're gonna be impressed by. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if we're saying that we're not an order taker and that we want to bring, creativity and everything to a business, then you need to show that. Not you just sat back and were told to do something. So language, I think, really think about that, what you're trying to portray, and obviously the jargon in the industry and the short form of certain words. Try and stick to the long form, because often as we're searching, that's maybe what we'll type in. People sometimes put a very short abbreviations because that's what they know and they're familiar with, but somebody who's not 100% familiar with that job might not write that, and you might not get it wrong. So try and stick
language.
I sometimes say to people, give it to somebody outside of your industry, give it to a family member, see if they can tell you what you do by the end of reading that job. Do they understand what you do?
Perfect advice. And then I forgot to mention the most important section, which you both talked about, which was this key achievement section, which doesn't have to just include stuff from the job, but could also be from outside. So that's great. I love that idea of giving it to someone outside, your area, and then ask them to tell you. Can they tell you what you've done? I think that's brilliant. That's really, really good. Okay, so the CV is perfect and it's correct. Today, does it work if they're working through you guys? Do you do the application for them, or do they send it with their own cover to the jobs? How does that work today?
No, we would send it.
You'd send it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we talk. I'm sure Elena does the same. We talk to the person. We find out about them, what we think is relevant to the job that we want to highlight to the client when we send the CV over, and we give them a sort of overview of that person, and then obviously the CV is perfect, obviously, and then the client has an overview of what that person can do. If there ever is anything that we think should go along with it, a supporting document, which is a really important bit of information that we would want the client to know, then if the candidate has sent that to us, by all means we will forward that on as well. Especially if it is quite technical and they want to talk about a project that they've worked on and it's too long to put the whole thing on the CV, but they've got a separate bit of information, then we would forward that on as well. At the end of the day, we want that person to get the interview, so we're going to do everything that we can to help highlight what is most relevant.
Okay, cool. That takes care of that. I was going to talk a little bit about the process and the mistakes, but you take care of that. So that's really, really good to know. And then comes the actual interview process. I would imagine at the moment, those interviews are predominantly taking place on this kind of forum, right? Zoom calls and that sort of thing. So that's the norm, right? Do you have some guidance as to what should they do for that interview from what's behind them, what's the setup like, what's the, I'm sure there's a bit of guidance there, right?
Yeah. Do you know, I've actually got face-to-face interviews that are taking place now. So they are still taking place. They are starting to take place. But if it is via Zoom, it's, your internet connection, making sure that you can log on previously to make sure that connection's fine. For me personally, I always say to people, have your background if you feel comfortable with it, or, because it shows you as a person, doesn't it? And that's really what the person's on the other side is looking at, who you are. If you don't feel comfortable, then put a background drop, making sure that your laptop is levitated up. And also you've got good lighting in the room as well. And your posture as well is really important as you're communicating. I think that's really important, how you communicate. It's still an interview process as well. So, yeah.
Before we go on, and now that you've mentioned it, and now very focused on the see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil behind you, we do have a comment that relates back to the CV, which I didn't actually talk about, from Medina. Good afternoon, thanks for joining us, asking this question: how important is the cover letter? Now, if you guys are taking care of the application, do you do a cover, or do you get the applicant to write a cover?
No, well, we don't do cover letters. However, and it's not always necessary. However, I find them interesting to read, depending on what the job is. So if you are trying to go into a job where you don't have that much experience on your CV, work experience, but you feel like you have a lot that you know is relevant, and it's too much to squeeze onto a CV, you can do a supporting cover letter with it. It doesn't need to be any more than a page. We're not talking about an essay here, but something. And it's not to be a carbon copy of your CV either. A lot of people make the mistake of doing it, and they basically write absolutely everything that they've ever done. And, it's all very formal, and dear sir, madam, this is who I am. And that's not the point of it, I don't think. For me, when I read them, I can, by the end of it, sometimes get a really good sense of who that person is, and I can hear their passion and their excitement in the way that they've written that letter. And that comes to us, and we will read that. Now, if I get a really good one, and again, I'm sending it for a job that I think this person might not have absolutely everything that they're looking for on the work experience, but I think they're a good fit. I've spoken to them. I think they've got everything that you're looking for. I'll forward it on as well. So, you know, they're not always asked for. Some people think they're outdated. I think they can be useful, used in the right way.
Anything you want to add to that, Elena, about the cover letter?
I'll be honest with you, a lot of our clients that we work with don't really ask for them. There is only probably a handful that probably would like to see them, along with an application form as well.
Okay.
But look, like Emma said, when you do a cover letter, it's really important. It's not like 3 pages long. You know, what you're trying to do is emphasize areas that are on your CV and really highlight that as to why you're applying for the position and what makes you great for that position that you're applying for.
Very good. Yeah, no problem, Medina. Thank you for asking the question. And if you're job seeking at the moment, I hope you find the session quite useful. So thanks for asking that. Okay. And then, you know, you talk about the face-to-face interviews are taking place. And I mean, again, yes. What are mistakes that people are making in the interview that they're not necessarily consciously aware of? I mean, you're not there, so you can't really tell, but I'm sure you get feedback later, right?
I'll be on with feedback that gets given to us. It's obviously unique to that individual that's attended the interview, but the things that we do try and tell people in terms of when they're preparing for the interview is to obviously remember the 5 Ps. You know, you've got your punctuality, presentation, posture, politeness, and then it's preparation is the last one. So, you know, if you're running late, make your consultant or your recruiter or make them aware that you're running late. You know, that is your punctuality, your presentation, how you're presenting yourself, you know, what you're wearing. You know, whilst I appreciate we've had lockdown, you can't turn up to an interview wearing flip-flops and jeans. You know, you've still got to present yourself in a way as you're attending an interview, you know, and your posture as well. That's how you're communicating in that interview, your politeness. Some mistakes are made where people are maybe negative towards a previous employer. And for me, I always say you can't be negative about a previous employer as much as you may want to. It's all about getting as much positive experience as you can take from that previous employer and to move it into your next position. And also your preparation, you know, what preparation are you doing before you attend? Are you looking at the full job description, who the company is, where they are in the market, you know, and doing that prep before you attend the interview?
Please, I'm trying to write it down. You went over that a bit quick, but I'm going to repeat. Sorry. No, that's fine. There was punctuality.
So it was presentation. You've got your politeness, your posture, and also your preparation.
Anything you want to add there, Emma?
Yeah, I mean, they're all really valid and really should be, you know, the absolute basics of an interview. And I think the one thing that I always say to people is you need to be enthusiastic. Sometimes we get feedback that people appear that they couldn't care less whether they were there or not. You know, they don't know why they don't know why they're there. They don't know why they want to be there. They can't articulate that. So, you know, there is absolutely nothing wrong with showing your enthusiasm for a job. At the end of the job, if at the end of the interview, if you want that job, say to them, you know, I really hope that I've demonstrated today why I'd be good for this position. You know, really, I'm keen to work for you. There is no harm in leaving them with a really positive vibe rather than slinking out of there like bye, head down, you know, shuffling out. Look them in the eyes and tell them that you want to work there. You know, it's important to show somebody, if you're interviewing for your company, they want to see that passion from the get-go, why you're there, why you want to be there. So I think that, you know, that is a big thing I say to people. You need to show them that you want this job in as many. And, you know, it's, I think as Elena covered there, the eye contact, the posture, the body positioning, your interpersonal skills, all of that really comes over. You know, be confident, hold yourself well. It goes a long way. It really does.
Brilliant. Yes. I mean, I'm sure a lot of the times it's just nerves, right? People are nervous, and so they deal with it with being a bit reserved and shy, and it's difficult for someone that's very nervous to be enthusiastic at the same time. So,
and their nerves comes out in so many ways as well. Like they talk too much, they don't know when to stop. They go off topic, they start because
waffle.
But some people are so nervous that they just need to get it out. So they just talk and talk and talk and talk, and they feel like, okay, there's all these things that I want to say, and so I'm just going to say them, and they're not relevant.
So what's your best advice for someone to deal with that nerves just before the interview? What can they do?
Practice.
And look what you've just done. You've just gone, and that's we had that session with Martin earlier this week, and with he's gonna not what was his name from Canada. We had the same session with him this week where he said just plant yourself in the moment and take a moment to focus on the moment, right? Just to zone in on that. So you've just done it.
I think the important thing is going to an interview, you do become nervous because whether you've had knockbacks previously, you really want this job. It's natural, isn't it? We sometimes allow fear to get into our heads. And the thing is, you have to remember before you go for that interview, you've been shortlisted because of your CV and your experience, That CV, yeah, absolutely. That CV has captured the attention of the hiring manager for a reason. So your experience is relevant to that job. And this is where the peacock comes in. This is where you go in and you show off your skills, your experience, and all that jazz.
Yes.
Yeah,
no, that's such an important point.
You're passionate about what you've done, and you've got to put the gremlins, the fear back at the back and leave that behind you once you walk through that door. Like Emma did, you take a deep breath in, you believe in yourself, your skills, and what you've done over the years. You're an industry professional, and you have absolutely every right to be in that interview.
I can draw a direct parallel to that and doing sales in my business, because if the customer, if you say to yourself, the person is asking you to come and show them your product or your software or whatever it is you're selling to them, and if you think about it like that, by the time you're doing that, that's the reason why you're there for. And you've just said it, this employee, this prospective employer, they are there because they want to see you. They want to talk to you. You're not there because you've broken the door down and, doing a cold call. They've looked at your CV. Exactly. And, you are there because they want to see you. And that should boost your confidence tremendously, right? So
100%.
That's a really good tip.
Wear a perfume or an aftershave. Wear your sparkly new shoes if that's going to help you. Whatever it is that's going to give you confidence,
Yes.
Whatever it may be. Your red lipstick. I've got mine on.
But we're always there to give pep talks to people, because sometimes I always call people before, and say good luck and everything. And sometimes just reminding them, having that quick 5-minute, come on, you can do this,
Yeah, absolutely.
You're good at this, you have got this, you have got that, and just reminding them what they are good at. So speak to somebody who can give you that little confidence boost before you go in as well, because that's what sometimes people need, and just alleviate that fear. We're all nervous about things. Both Elena and I were nervous about today, being online, being interviewed, and we do this all day, every day, but it's still nerve-wracking when you don't know what's going to be asked. So,
but Emma and Elena, don't just remember, you are here because I want you to be here, because your skills are needed. So that, you see, that should make you feel better, right? So there you go. That's a great tip. Yeah, I mean, it's important. Yeah, I'm putting it there at the bottom. You are there because they want to see you. Okay. We have just over 10 minutes left. We haven't actually talked about dealing with the inevitable potential, rejection. What is your number one advice for taking, what should you do with that? Sorry, job's not for you. Response.
Not to take it personal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's number one, because normally with an interview process, there's normally 4 to 5 of you that have been shortlisted for that interview, normally. And it's really not to take that personal, you know, and that's number one for me when trying to deliver feedback, is it's nothing personal, you know, that's my number one.
If
I
you
don't know
can get
if you.
feedback, if you can get some useful, constructive feedback from the person who did the interview or the recruiter, then take it and listen to it, because they're not telling you something to be spiteful, or you know, they're telling you something to work on, to help. And I know sometimes I've delivered feedback and it's not necessarily been well received, but that's what they did in the interview that made the hiring manager think twice. And if you want, you know, you've got to listen. So I would say listen to some feedback. If there is some that you could have improved on, or maybe, you know, sometimes the hiring manager will say, I was trying to get them to expand on something, so I asked them the question 2 or 3 times and they didn't get the hint that that's what I was trying to do. So sometimes we have to say that to someone. Look, you know, if somebody asks you the question a couple of times, it's because they want you to say more. So they're trying to tell you to say more when they're not. So I think that listening to the feedback is important, but not getting too hung up on it as well. You know, understanding, and it is very hard not to take these things personally, and especially if you really want that job. It's disappointing, and it's difficult, it's disappointing, but own how you feel about it as well, and accept that you feel disappointed and a bit angry and upset, and move on from it, and don't let it ruin the whole week or move into your next interview.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. There's a nice comment there from Anna-Marie. I just want to bring it on the stage, if that's okay. We don't have to talk about it much, but thank you for sharing the comment, Anna-Marie. Yeah, it's weird how the word peacock has come up so many times this week, but there you go. It's very applicable. They do a great job of promoting themselves, right? So there we go. That's what they're good at.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks for commenting, Anna-Marie. And then if we can spend a few minutes just talking about what's the market like, what is out there, what are you finding? I mean, on Tuesday's discussion, Emma, I got the impression that, you know, you were also expanding into all the obviously people having to leave the industry, etc. But, you know, I'm actually seeing a lot more hiring notices in my LinkedIn feed now. And, you know, there's a lot of people doing a great job. I should have prepared better for this discussion and written their names down, but there's some people who are doing great jobs of repeating and resending them, etc. So there's some great jobs going out there. Is that what you're seeing as well?
Oh, yeah. We've got much busier. And speaking to clients who are saying to us, right, you know, at some points they're saying, how quickly are you going to be able to get hold of people for this job if it's sort of short notice that we need to start recruiting again? So I think that the next few months are going to be really interesting. But certainly we are busier than we have been for a long time, which is fantastic, because obviously it's very difficult, and we're starting to get some people back into doing what they want to do. So that's a massive bonus. But I think there's a lot of positivity and a lot we can all take away in knowing that things are moving forward now, that companies are focused on rehiring. You know, they're through crisis mode, they are in recovery, and they're going to be into growth very, very soon. So, yeah, I'll be very confident.
Yeah, she couldn't make it, but Lynn from Sirius was telling me that she's got customers actually lining up for jobs, you know, 6 months ahead now, because they're worried about shortages in the market. So that's really good. And then, Elena, before I get to you, there's 2 things I want to mention. Yeah, Anne-Marie, I see you also made a comment in the chat section for this. Yes, we are recording this. It will go onto the ribbonfortravel.com website. But that's my job for between 2 and 3 in the morning on Sunday. That will happen later, but we'll try and get it up by next week. And also the guy I'm thinking about is Paul Deere on LinkedIn, DEAR. He does an incredible job of repeating what's available and jobs that he spots, etc., etc. So hats off to him for doing that and sharing that so proactively. But Elena, are you echoing that? You're seeing an uptake in job openings, and there's
Definitely.
a lot of positive
We've seen a massive increase of vacancies coming through, which is so positive. They are particular in terms of certain areas what clients are looking for. So my advice is to look at what the requirements are in terms of that role. And if you have that experience, again, highlight it on your CV, definitely, because there's roles out there where your skills can be transferable to, but it's, you know, it's important that you highlight that into your CV.
Okay,
but
brilliant.
yeah, roles are being created now, so it's been really positive for us as well, like Emma said.
And new roles as well, not just
they're all new roles. They're all new positions.
Not just you know, replacements, but actually new positions that are in businesses now where they've moved their focus towards something else within the business and have created a new position and almost a new team to go along to look after a certain aspect, a new aspect of the business. So there's much more. And I think I said this a while ago on LinkedIn when we were asked about what we thought about the future. And we said, we think that there will be new positions created, new areas of business, and there are being, which is great.
That's really, really positive. You know, and yeah, really good to hear. And I assume there's also more flexibility now with people's and their views on this whole. We didn't talk about it, and we don't have time to talk about, you know, working from home, working remote, hybrid, a bit more flexible on those things. You're seeing more of that?
Some clients, yes. Depends on the actual position itself. For us, we've noticed more of the sales roles. They want them in the office as part of the team, which is natural for some clients and for that team to be together. And for other positions, we've seen like fully remote or hybrid positions that have been created.
Brilliant. Okay, that's very good. And so, you know, I was, you know, interviewing you guys today and I did all the questions. What did I forget to ask you? What was the one other thing? Was there anything we missed? Mistakes people make
when you're applying to a job, make sure you check the location is right for you and the salary is right for you as well. If you're registering on job boards, make sure your contact details are correct and what your salary cap requirement is updated. That is so important because recruiters and hiring managers, when they go onto job boards, they normally put a to and a from in the salary bracket. And if you're less than that, your CV won't come up.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's the same with it. Sometimes on the job boards, it will say desired job title and people will just write assistant. Well, assistant of what? You know, like what you're looking for, let us know. We don't know what that means. We wouldn't necessarily click on that CV. We have to pay per CV that we're looking for, or, you know, it comes out of our allocation. So you need to make it clear to us that your CV is worth clicking on. Don't just write assistant. We don't know what that means. So be specific.
Also, one other tip for job seekers, real quick tip, real good one, is use Google to find jobs. So I give advice to all my candidates. If I can't directly help them at that point, what is it that you're looking for? Put it into the Google. What Google will do is spit back out to you. It will do the search function in the background and then kick out all the jobs with that job title in that particular area with the salary banding that you put in there as well. So it will search the whole of the job boards, websites, LinkedIn, and it will feed it back out to you.
Really? I didn't know that. I mean, I would have thought you had to go to LinkedIn and to another one, etc. But you can do it. You can do it in Google. So what do you?
Jobs thing now, yeah.
So there's a Google for jobs thing, etc. And does that not take the candidates away from the agency, like in your case? I mean, you're referring them to.
You know, I think the important thing is right now is that people are getting back into employment, and that's what we should all be working towards with that in mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of think I want to have a session with you guys where we talk about, and we should definitely try and include Lynn. Lynn just couldn't make it today with the timing, but I think it would be interesting for us to have an open discussion from an employer perspective, and dealing with employment, you know, recruitment agencies like yourselves. And the pluses and the minuses, and just talk a bit frank about that, because I do think there is a bit of misconception out there about that as well, right? So certainly from my side there is, and look how nice you guys are. So, so brilliant. Okay, our time is up, and I really just want to thank you both, Emma and Elena, for just stepping up to the plate here and just sharing. It's fantastic So thank you very much for your support and your support for Ribbon for Travel. For those watching on LinkedIn, we have another session in an hour from now that's going to be more US focused, but I don't think will be too different from this. I think these things are universally the same. I mean, so it's just that there's more US focus on that. So we want to cover that time zone, and that will be in an hour's time from now. So thank you so much for both of you. And
Thank you
have yourselves
no,
my pleasure. Have yourselves a great weekend, and just stay on while we play the exits, and I'll catch you at the end of that exit. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.